Let's take a look at the track. This is from F1.com. 71 laps, 4.3 kilometers. The circuit length held in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Interlagos. You have 2 DRS zones, 15 corners, and the lap record is held by Juan Pablo Montoya, who is a journalist these days. We can see him in the paddock, which is actually kind of cool and so unexpected, but it's awesome. Before I get on to talking tyres and everything else, I just want to say thank you so much for 7,000 subscribers. It's really awesome, really cool. If you haven't already subscribed, then you can. But I'm actually going to America for 3 weeks, so I will keep up to date with Formula One, uploading videos, but the videos might be a little bit late, so that's just a heads up. Thought I would let you know just in case. Let us talk about tyres. So most of the teams, 18 out of the 22, have elected to have one set of the hardest compound available, and also this includes both Mercedes drivers. And then when it comes to the softest compounds, the majority, 12 of the 22 teams, elected to have 8 sets of the softest compound available. Aside from that, the selection is pretty similar against other drivers. Oh, and I don't know who made this, but there's a special off-track super hard compound for Hamilton, Rosberg, and Verstappen. This is a joke, by the way, but I just found it and thought, wow, the things people do on the internet. So I'm sure we all know exactly what happened in the last race in Mexico with the penalties and grey areas, the Sebastian Vettel outburst on the team radio, and I've talked about all of this on a separate video on my channel, which is called F1 Stewards and Their Penalties. So it's all on there, so I'm not going to repeat all of that all over again, but here is the official statement from the FIA regarding the actions of Sebastian Vettel in terms of his big radio outburst and the anger that he showed. You know, Daniel Ricciardo was not really impressed with it, neither was Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, a lot of people, because he did insult the referee of F1, if you look at it in that term. What if it wasn't Vettel? What if it was someone like Jolyon Palmer? This tweet was actually from 2013, so bear this in mind. What if it was a different driver? What if it was Kvyat? What if it was Hamilton? What if it was Rosberg? I have a feeling it would have gone in different ways, and that is not really okay. But it's a new race weekend, and hopefully there will be things that are going to be discussed in the drivers' briefings, and hopefully things will become clearer. We can only hope. Oh, and in that video that I was talking about with the FIA, like the F1 stewards, I also talked about Hülkenberg and how he said that the rule was bent for Lewis Hamilton, who wasn't given a penalty for gaining an advantage at the first corner. I also talked about Carlos Sainz, who actually said that the team radio has become so frequent to complain about things because it's the most easiest and straightforward way to try and, you know, get other drivers' penalties and things like that. And I also talked about penalty points and how Kvyat is pretty close to a 1 race ban. He needs 4 penalty points. Not that close, but sort of close, you know, and how the penalty points actually, I don't even know how they're given out. Like, some of the reasons are just silly. So I would highly recommend you to see that video. I don't really want to repeat everything all over again in this one because I want to talk more about the Brazilian Grand Prix. So yeah. So Lance Stroll has signed with Williams for 2017, who will be the youngest on the grid next season, and a lot of people say that this has actually also secured the future of the Canadian Grand Prix, which I think is a very positive thing. He is a F3 champion, and you know, he says that he has proved that his titles make him worthy of this seat, and you know, of course his father has paid 30 million, I believe, euros or dollars for this seat, which is a lot of money. I mean, I would like a billionaire father too, but jokes aside, let's see what he can do next season. In terms of Williams in Brazil, this is going to be Felipe Massa's last ever Brazilian Grand Prix race in Formula One, and that is just so sad to think about. I can't even like believe that he's now retiring. It's starting to get a little bit more serious, and I think that, you know, obviously they're battling really hard with Force India in the constructors for that 4th place, so obviously that's going to be their big goal, and definitely something we should be looking out for because it's so close between both teams right now. And of course, I'd like to wish Frank Williams a speedy recovery. He has been suffering with pneumonia. He is back home, which is really good, so wishing him a very speedy recovery. And Marcus Ericsson hopes to stay with Sauber for 2017. And also he had his best, what he claims was his best race in Mexico in the last race, which was a P11. This should be a very strong track for Red Bull. It has been. In fact, you know, when Red Bull gets things right, pretty much every track ends up being very much in their favour. We've seen this in the past, obviously, with their dominance, but I think that's maybe just, you know, the dominant cars. They just go well everywhere, but this should be a good track for them. Actually want to go through the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. So starting with the Drivers' Championship, I mentioned Rosberg needs to win this race in order to win the championship. Is it going to go down to the wire? Is it going to be wrapped up in Brazil? That's the real question. So I'm sure, you know, the Formula One fans that sort of watch, you know, a few races here and there, this is probably going to be the 2 races that they most likely tune in to watch, because of course not everybody watches every single race. But that's going to be very interesting to watch. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. This is really boiling down to the championship now. The pressure, the mind games, the calmness, the anger, maybe the frustration, we don't know what's going to come out of it. But interestingly, Daniel Ricciardo is actually 3rd in the championship, and Max Verstappen obviously down a little bit because he did start the season with the Toro Rosso, and he did miss out with 4, I believe it was 4 races. But incredible to think that, you know, he's so far up the championship anyways, but he's so close actually to overtaking both the Ferraris in the Drivers' Championship. And interestingly, it looks like the Ferraris have sort of just slipped down because they started the season ahead of Red Bull. Maybe some of Sebastian Vettel's frustration lies within this. We don't know what's going to happen next season. Red Bull could be the more dominant car of the entire grid. You know, we have to wait and see. A little bit further down the grid, you can see that tied on 85 points are Perez and Bottas. Obviously, both teams, Williams and Force India, going for that 4th place in the Constructors. It is so unbelievably close. It's just really exciting. Again, something really exciting to watch out for. Hülkenberg is down with 60 points, but there's Fernando Alonso there as well, Felipe Massa. And then you've got Carlos Sainz with 38 points, but everything's very, very close, and the order in the Drivers' Championship can definitely change. So you've also got Romain Grosjean and Danny Kvyat and Jenson Button, again, very close together in the championship as well. You have 3 drivers with 1 point each. Of course, Stoffel Van Dorn, he was replacing Fernando in Bahrain. And you also have Pascal Wehrlein with that 1 point. You have Palmer with 1 point, which is interesting compared to Magnussen's 7. But also, it's Esteban Gutierrez doesn't have any. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. None for Marcus Ericsson or Nasser, both of the Saubers. So are they going to be able to somehow miraculously get something to turn up in front of the Manners? That didn't make any sense, but to get ahead of the Manners. Rio Haryanto, who of course is not currently racing, he 0, and Esteban Ocon also 0. So there's quite a lot happening down at the bottom of the grid as well. Somehow I don't think Sauber are going to get any points between now and the end of the season. I think if they had a chance, it would have been right at the beginning or somewhere in between in the middle of the season, or even in the last race. That being said, who knows, because Interlagos throws a surprise. If there is a track that throws a surprise, it is this one. Okay, so Mercedes have locked out the Constructors' Championship, but there's obviously still the battle between Red Bull and Ferrari. Now, if you could sort of look at this, I think, I don't know, mathematically I think Red Bull might be able to take 2nd place this weekend, maybe? I haven't really done the maths on this one. Can someone let me know? So yeah, Red Bull are quite far ahead of Ferrari right now, but obviously there are 2 cars that contribute to the points, not just 1. You also have Force India and Williams so close in their battle for 4th place, as I keep mentioning the entire time. McLaren and Toro Rosso, there's a little bit of gap between the rest of the teams, but again, between 4 cars and 2 races, these gaps can be narrowed down. As for Esteban Gutierrez, this is really interesting. Apparently Magnussen has, this is rumour, but Magnussen has received a contract that is ready to be signed for 2 years at Haas, apparently. This is a really strong rumour, and a lot of the strong rumours this season have actually been true. But Esteban Gutierrez in the press conference for the Mexican Grand Prix did not seem sure of what was going to happen. He seemed to sort of, Perez was asked about having, a future teammate, and Esteban Gutierrez said, what about a Mexican? So he's obviously looking for a seat, and that seems very evident. But also, if you look at his career points, you'll see that he's only scored in one race in his entire career, which was when he was teammates with Nico Hülkenberg at Sauber. And I know this is from Wikipedia, but just chill with me for a second because it is accurate. 7th place. In Japan in 2013, yes, you could maybe argue that the car he's been given might not be that great, but he's scored so many 11th places this season, and maybe if there was a different driver in that car, maybe it would have been a different story. His record does not seem so impressive when you look at those stats. I'm just being honest, because when you kind of look at him versus Grosjean has really pulled the weight, and that's a lot of 11th places, and if he had even scored points in any of those races, those are valuable. He hasn't scored any so far this season. On another note, loads of rumours that there might be a bit of a shake-up with Liberty Media and that the management might actually change, and so many rumours, in fact, that Ross Brawn could become the new boss, which honestly sounds so... I find that really interesting and so exciting. However, he did deny all of those rumours. It was a really big talking point actually this week. So despite denying all of that, he has actually said that I'm doing a little consulting to help them better understand F1, but that's all. And he's also said that Liberty have not yet got far enough down the road to make any commitments yet. So he told that to the BBC. And Bernie Ecclestone has insisted that there will be no change in the management of the sport for the next few years. But I mean, he says things, and the things he says comes and goes. But he said, well, I can assure them that as far as the company is concerned, it stays as it is. There will be no change. I'm actually planning on reading Ross Brawn's new book. If anyone has read it, let me know what you think. He's also recently come out and said that Michael Schumacher is showing some very encouraging signs after his